Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode number 42. My name is Glenn Gers. I am writing for screens, literally, as we speak. I am working on a pilot script so that you can look over my shoulder as I take you step-by-step through my process of writing a script. This is not the only process. It's not the perfect process. It's just a way to show you how somebody does it so that you might feel a little less confused and alone when you're trying to do it. The thing we are trying to do here is help you do yours. Hello, Wolf. It is good to be here. It is good to see y'all. Today, we are going to get right back into it. Very briefly, I am here every Monday through Friday, if I can be, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, doing this thing and also letting you ask me almost anything. If for some reason you are not here live and cannot ask me right here in the chat, you can ask me on writingforscreens.com by clicking on Contact Me. Damn near anywhere in the website, you'll find a little Contact Me button, and you can ask me a question that way. You can also ask me a question by typing it here in the comments section. I always get that backwards where that is. The comments go directly to me. YouTube notifies me when you leave a comment. So if you've got a question, type it in the comments. I'll get it. I'll try to either answer it there or answer it here, because that's just the kind of guy I am. All right, let's see what we are doing. What we are doing is a character outline. I started this last session, and what this basically is a way to think about your character, to understand your character. It's a little side outline, a little side project, a little process by which you can think out a character in new ways, which you will then throw away. But you'll keep the fruits of it, the results. Hey, Maria, good to see you. Good to have everybody here as we begin with what I'm calling Zena's outline. We got a question here about this, which I thought was a useful question. The question was, do we outline them individually, like they're pursuing a goal as a protagonist with their own obstacles, or do we consider their actions to be a consequence of the reactions of the main protagonist? This is exactly what we are questioning. This is exactly what we are doing. And the answer is, we are not doing this. We are looking at them individually. We are trying to pursue the goal, what they're doing, and see what it would be like through their eyes. And that's really what I want to talk about here. The whole idea of this is every character goes through every story thinking, as we all do, that they are the center of the story. We may have some humility in life, but we still think we're the center of our experience. I don't want to get into whether or not that's a debate. I believe we are all each the center of our own experience. We are that important. Hold on. Did you stumble about your Facebook? Yeah, I'll get to that. Yeah, sure. I have the Writing for Screens has a Facebook page. Look for it. Facebook, Writing for Screens. You'll find me there. I do Instagram too, and Twitter. You can type Writing for Screens into any of those, and I believe you will find a feed in which I just drop, whenever I can, a little meme, a little thought, a little quote. Okay, sorry. So I am easily distracted. Have you noticed that? Okay, the deal is every character is going through every scene thinking about what they want, who they are. When they are in the middle of a bank robbery or they are in the middle of a love story, even if they are just the best friend of the main characters, they're not thinking, gee, I'm the best friend of the main character. They're thinking, I want to help this person, or I am jealous of this person, or I think this person is a fool, and they are acting according to that. They are not acting according to what the script needs them to do. They have to be acting according to what they need to do. And one way to think about that is to make an outline just of their scenes, because that's all they experience. They only experience what scenes we see them in. They may be, and it's sort of fun because then you can sort of think between the scenes, what are they doing? Who are they? How did they get into this? So the thing I just wanted you to think about is, whoa, let's make this big. You haven't really imagined them and their lives yet. I'm sort of talking to myself here. You've got types, you've got themes, you've got borrowed bits. When I think about the character of Zena, I'm actually thinking about a type. First of all, she's a sociological type in that I'm calling her a zoomer. She is a type in that she is a wannabe influencer. And so the themes of wanting attention or whatever else I decide to attach to her is there. And mainly it's borrowed bits. I'm taking pieces of what I know of influencers and pieces of what I know of side characters in romantic stories, because that's who she seems to be here, is someone who is sort of helping our main characters fall in love, really. And that's not who she thinks she is. That is not her experience. Currently, they exist to serve my purposes, and that's not good. By walking through the story in their scenes only, it helps you to live in their life, and then you can talk in their voice. And that's really the key. When you write a scene, you need to be able to kind of switch from voice to voice with every line. You have to say, this person would be feeling this and say this. And then you have to jump into the other person and think, how would they react to that? And then you think, well, they would do this. And that's how you write. You do it invisibly. You do it very fast, honestly. You just sort of bop around in mental space. But that's the process. So let's talk. This first scene is all about Madeline, but there's an interruption when Zena is calling. So I'm going to take all of this stuff about Madeline during Madeline's scene. Okay. So Zena is calling and texting. Oh, and not answering. Okay. So that's all we need to know about that scene. All right. You know what? I'm not even going to put that in then. All right, I'm gonna add that here. Okay. She has been calling and texting Madeline to try to get permission to visit. Okay. So look at that. We have focused on Zena. Oh, hello, Jonathan. How are you? So here's the deal. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, we're going to meet Zena, and it's intercut from her home on the West Coast. So we're seeing her her home life. So let's talk a bit about that. She is living in her parents' home, which is big, luxurious, and bourgeois. Is that spelled right? No, that is not spelled right. Hold on. Bourgeois. There we go. Got that. So she's and we want to see that she is very comfortable here. See her moving from room to room and doing life stuff, eating, laundry, whatever. while she's calling. In other words, this is her modus operandi. This is her. We're establishing her as a person who's comfortable in this technology and in this this activity of reaching out online and through electronics to people from the safety of this wonderful home. We probably see her parents here. Yeah, we do. Also, okay. And we're going to have to think about them. So what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to start to fill in the character's life. Like I'm saying, she's doing this thing, but I have to think about what is that scene going to be. And then, why is she living at home, Glenn? That's a good question. Why is she living at home? I believe that she is living at home because she's not making enough money to live on her own. She's trying to be an influencer. She's trying to set herself up, but that's not actually, as I can assure you, from someone who is doing this, it's hard to make money at this, and so therefore she is trying to launch herself when she's got supportive, perhaps too supportive parents. It's funny. People ask questions that to me are like, duh. It never even occurred to me. Why? Because your mind goes very quickly to things when you're writing. You have so many things in your head that you know what you want once you get used to accessing that. Don't rich people have employees to do their chores? Yes. So we also see her family's employees, housekeeper or cook or whatever. I mean, they're not super. I don't think they have chauffeurs, but they would have household employees. And Zena probably doesn't treat them great. She probably takes them for granted. They're sort of household appliances. Treats them like appliances. Okay. Now, yes, big houses don't always mean super rich, though. That is definitely true. I do want to not suggest that she is super rich, but I'm talking about when you look at the full sweep of America, she is above the middle line. She's in the upper class. But that I don't mean the super rich. I just mean the people who make enough money to have servants and or employees and a big house and let their kid live there after college or instead of college while she goes about her life. One thing I can say is I know this person. I have met this person. I live in Los Angeles. I used to live in New York. I have met plenty of people who have more than enough support. I was such a person. It was a long time ago, back in the 1970s and 80s, but I got a lot of support from my upscale parents. My dad was a doctor. My mom owned a bookstore. And so I sort of already know this person. Maybe, although we have a stockbroker character, one of our conspiracy nuts. Anyway, so the important thing is that she is playing. This is her character. That she plays a little ditzier than she truly is. She's more calculating than she lets on. Anyway, so in this scene, this is what we get from her. We get that George had this young friend who he never physically met. She says, in other words, that she has to convince Madeline that she's on her side. That's her goal in this scene. As I've said earlier, I don't know how much you guys remember. This is another interesting thing. An important thing to remember when you're writing, you are building a castle in your head. You are building a roller coaster in your head, and you have to keep coming back to it, and you have to keep going over it, and slowly but surely it becomes familiar. Just like if you moved to a new place and you took certain streets, they would soon enough become unconscious. And you would say, I know the map of this place. I know the plan. I know the structure. That is what you're trying to do with your writing in the outline. You're trying to get to where you don't ask questions because you know, oh yeah, this is who she is. This is what she's doing in this moment. This is what we are establishing in this moment. Yes, absolutely. We are saying the whole point that we are subtly, she's not going to discuss her employment here, but what we are discussing, what we are setting up is that she is not making a living at what she wants to do. She's living at home and she does not have a regular job. She is the only person in this group of web sleuths who is a full-time wannabe web sleuth. Everyone else is doing it as a hobby, as a side gig, as a whatever they want to do. But right now, the point of this scene is to introduce her in her natural habitat. We will not think she's that important, and we'll know she's important because we're cutting away to her. There's a lot of language. There's a lot of unspoken film and narrative language with which you express things to the audience. If you take the time to give a character a scene, you are saying, remember this person. This person is going to be meaningful in some way. They have an unconscious awareness that if you take the time to cut to their home, if you take the time to give them a scene, you are saying, I am introducing you to a major character. Because they know, having consumed a lot of stories, the sort of basic principles, which is you don't have a lot of room, you are not going to spend a whole long time introducing a character that you never see again, almost always. So I am almost unconsciously at this point understanding what I am communicating to them by giving her a scene. So I don't necessarily have to do much more in that scene except give us a flavor of her and give her an action, which is to try to get to meet Madeline and get to that house. That's the point of the scene. So the next scene, we see another side of her. She's still at home. Zena is still operating from home. So we're going to get to spend a bunch of time in Zena's home with her home life. We're not going to spend a lot of time with her parents, but we are going to get this feeling of who she is. In this scene, in this sequence, what she's doing is she is going to be reporting to everyone about George. Oh, I had a question for myself. I want to put it here. How did she get Mad's number? Or even know Mad exists? This is an interesting question because in theory, the only way that she would know this is if George told her, which means somehow or other she wormed her way into George's life enough to find out who would be the person she would have to contact if he died. Zena must have wormed her way into George's life enough to know Mad was his next of kin executor. So she'd the way to get the files. Wormed. Okay. We won't find that out now, but I need to know it now. I need to know that she is going to say, oh, George talked about you. Oh, yes, George told me about you. Which that goes into the confidant thing about Zena. Zena's main characteristic is confidant, is pal, is coordinator and sharer. Which will actually be a sort of cool twist that her actual motive in all that confidanting is selfish. I like that. There's a lot of unconscious or theoretical things that you do with characters, especially when you get used to it. I just do it. I'm actually trying to put this into words because it's something that's come so naturally once you've been building characters for a while. You begin to get a sense of what their core is. For any character, you can't really tell us that much. Even a major character, there's so much that the author might know about the character that they're not going to get to actually explicitly say. And so I have to know her basic mode is this confidant, disarming thing. Okay. You guys, I've got a couple questions. She actually wants to become no, she does not. What she wants to become is a podcaster or true crime person or anything that will get her attention as an influencer, as a public figure. That is what she wants. All she wants is to be important, famous. That's what she wants, attention. I don't know if you remember that from the overview, but that is, if we look for Zena here, she is all about attention. That is how I understand her at her heart. It's a really good thing to try and get a core truth about characters into your head and heart. It's going to be buried because you don't just put the truth out there. That's pretty cheap storytelling when everything is laid out and at the end of the story you've been told everything. The best storytelling is when you let the audience discover it for themselves because you know it and you've built it that way. Once again, I'm going to very strongly emphasize Directing Actors by Judith Weston because she gets a lot into the idea of character, of who the person is in their essence, what they are essentially trying to do in all these masquerades that we have. When somebody takes a job, it's because they want things that are behind the obvious, behind the money or behind the status. They want recognition, or they want safety, or they want to help others. There's always layers of motive, and that's a center of character that you really should think of. Again, this book, Directing Actors, is not about writing, and yet I believe that if writers translate it, it's super, super useful. Okay, so let's go back to this. Would Zena have become George's mirror character? I am not sure what that means. That sounds like somebody's screenwriting theory that I don't know about. That somebody has said that these characters are mirrors. And so I'm not sure what that means, but I don't think so, actually. Has she investigated the group members to make sure they're trustworthy? To a certain extent, I think she does a lot of snooping online. I think, yeah, and that's actually an interesting quality about her that we want to get in here. Online into the lives of everyone she meets or works with. Zena's a creature of online. Zena is a 21st century creature in which she is capable of observing people through their online presence. I believe the now term is to be bad and bougie. That is entirely possible, and if so, fascinating. Okay, so here in the next scene, hello, Matthew. Here in the next scene, we're getting the same Zena. Zena is still operating from home. She has is a little more explicit about her motives. Just find your channel, started from... How cool! Great, I am really glad. Thank you. Yes, this is true. This is definitely true. Although when I'm recommending the screenwriting, the acting book, in this particular case, I'm recommending it specifically because it's weirdly helpful for writing, even though it's not about writing. Okay, so what Zena's doing in this next scene is much more, she is leveling more, not entirely though. She's being more honest about what she wants and what she's doing because she's talking to her team. She's not talking to her her intended victim. This is interesting. Mirror characters were a concept in literary criticism when I was at college. A mirror is a character that stands in contrast to another character. Yes, Wolf. Cool. So, interesting. See, that's helpful. But I would have thought a mirror was sort of the same because mirror. But of course, a mirror is also backwards, so that's true. But in this particular case, no, she is not a mirror of George. She's a person, you know, the other thing about concepts like that, they are useful, but you don't want to replace the dynamics in the story with that. In other words, a person doesn't intend to be someone's mirror. They may be someone's mirror and we may judge them that way, but the character themselves, mostly, I mean, I guess somebody could intend to be a dark reverse of something. But I think it's very important to be able to switch back and forth between this sort of judgmental writing concept where we are analyzing people and trying to understand them in terms of our use of them. And then we have to think of them in their use. And that's sort of what I'm trying to go through here, is to think, what does Zena think she's doing? She does not remotely want to be George's or anybody's mirror. She thinks she's the center of the world. And what she wants to be is George's false pal. She wants to be, with everybody, she has the same confidant relationship. She tries to be their best friend and their helper and not threatening to them, where in reality, she is either using them or trying to take their place. That's her real motive. Yes, that's interesting. But I don't, when we say that, like I said, it's not like Red wants to be a mirror to Andy. He just is, and we can understand him that way. But what I'm trying to do when I go through this outline is stay in Zena's head. That's the whole point of this character exercise, the character outline, is to go through the story and say, in her mind, in her life, what is happening. And what's happening here is she is trying to get the team on board with her mission. To a certain extent, yes, she attaches to anyone that will bring her fame, or she is manipulating people in order to essentially make them into steps that she can climb. And that's really what I'm trying to get at here, is that she is talking to these people, and she wants to, and she is reporting what happened. I'm not going to go in detail into the steps of her argument here, which is actually something I will have to do when I write it, because what I'm trying to get to here is what she feels and intends. Exactly how much she talks to which person and stuff, I'm not going to worry about it. What I am going to ask myself, though, is like, here's what I'm saying. She is leveling more to win the team over to her plan. That is her goal. That is her objective. And I find it really helpful to try and think in terms of a verb, in terms of an action. What is she trying to do here? She is trying to win the team over to her plan. That is entirely the action of this scene. Now, my question then becomes, how does she relate to each person? One of the this is so important. I'm going to take away the page. One of the most valuable things about doing a character outline or any kind of outline is to spend your time thinking, how does each person relate to each other person? It's a complicated web. In other words, how Zena looks at each one of the team. She has, like all of us, if you put me at a party, a dinner party with people I knew, I would have a different relationship with some of them. I would want to impress. Some of them I would want to confide in. Some of them I would want to keep a distance from. You have a different relationship with each person that you know. And you need to think about what each character thinks about each other character. And then you go through it, you think, well, what do the other ones think of them? It's like three-dimensional chess. Although it isn't all three-dimensional, it's four-dimensional chess, five-dimensional. It's many, many dimensions of chess. You have to keep putting yourself in different people's shoes and thinking, what do they think of them? So my question here is, what does Zena think of Dundosky? Actually, and this is really important. This is the sort of thing I do, which I regret later. Actually, that's a question. I am now working in a separate document. Here, look. I am in the Zena outline. Oh, you guys aren't looking at this. I apologize. I am in the Zena outline, right? I made a copy of the pilot outline, and I did a copy, which I'm going to move to trash. Okay, so I made a copy, and then I renamed the pilot outline Zena outline, and then I cut out everything that wasn't Zena. I just went through, and if I found something that wasn't a Zena scene, I cut it out. So now this outline is just Zena's scenes. Here's the problem. I have now written new stuff into this outline, but it's not in this outline. And this is the real one. This one is just a workspace. So I am going to have to go through the Zena outline when I am done with it and copy and paste everything new back into the pilot outline. Otherwise, it gets lost. This is important stuff. I know this sounds like silly, but this is the tricky stuff about doing this work, is that you want to keep funneling everything into the place where it helps. You don't want to keep making new documents and then having to keep checking all of them. Everything you've got should go in one or two main documents. So what I think I'm going to do is I am going to, hold on a second, sorry, I can't see something here. I am going to color everything new a certain color so that I can remember to cut it and paste it. Okay, so there. All right. Matthew, yes, it is really easy to mess up once you start creating sub-documents for specific purposes. So this is what I'm doing here, is I'm going through and I'm making everything new orange, because that way later I will be able to find it. All right. So you see how this works, this character outline thing. Oh, sorry. There we go. So this is the basis of a character outline. And so as I'm going through and I'm thinking, I'm now going to figure out what Zena thinks of each person in the group. So that's going to be the next task. What I'm probably going to do now is stop going step by step through it, because I think you're getting the idea, which is that you go through their scenes and you try and put yourself in their place, what they feel at that moment, what they are trying to do in that scene with those people. And you just think about the story from as if you were living in their life, running into these events. And so therefore, that's the process. I'm going to stop for a bit to talk a bit more directly about this. The whole point here is if you do this, and it takes a few days, you really have to, like with a major character, you're really like rethinking the entire thing, for walking through it in their shoes. But what happens then is when you get all that, you've understood the outline better. It's just a way to keep going through the outline and understanding it from everybody's point of view, so that when you actually write the scene, you can do that thing where you just bop from head to head saying, she would be thinking this, he would be thinking that. Instead of thinking, I am the author who is trying to establish this, you're saying, how does it feel to her? What does she do? And that's what gets you the good dialogue, the good action. That's how that works. And that's why I am a big proponent of these character outline exercises, as long as you get it back into the main outline. Okay. Burgundy has a question, a comment. The relationship can be very interesting. Yes. I think that's very true. I also think the thing about Dundosky is she has got to feel contempt for him. Deep down, she feels like she's using him, and she doesn't respect him, but she doesn't want to tell him that. Yes, exactly. She's got everybody under her spell, sort of. She is manipulative, and she is manipulative in a real friendly way, so that she will essentially, and this is my goal, this is the whole point of her manipulativeness, that we will use that to manipulate the audience. The audience will also not see that she's the murderer, because that's really the big game here. The big game is to be able to pull off a twist. And twists are really hard to pull off. The thing you have to do with a twist is you have to make a completely convincing wrong version. And that has to lay on top of the real version. And they both have to be completely thought out. So that's what we're doing right now. Matthew says, when I'm writing, I allow the characters to lead the story. I follow them and write down what they do, trying to lead them. Rather than trying to lead them. Okay, let's talk about this, because this is interesting. I would not say don't do what you do if it works. If you are writing stuff that you like and that you feel satisfied and you have a good process for writing, and if it's having the effect that you want, if people are getting it, if they laugh at what you think is funny, or they're scared by what you think is scary, and if they go, ooh, that's good, or that's cool, or that's whatever, then do what you do. I don't know how, it's not like there's one way to do this. Everybody does it differently. If, as happened to me, and that's why I developed this, the instinctive, impulsive way doesn't, if you get jammed up, if you are not able to get things written, that was my main problem. I had all this creativity, I just couldn't get it down. I couldn't get a script to work. I couldn't get a script that I could finish that I liked. So I began to develop these ideas or approaches as a way to get around the part where your instinct doesn't work. So Matthew, if your characters are leading you to a well-plotted or satisfying or good-feeling story, do it. Great. Mine don't. I don't find that happens. I don't find that Zena will just naturally make the right choice for the story. That I have to work up to that. I have to make choices for them because they're too unformed when I start. That's, everybody is different. Everybody works a different way. Sure, however you do it is good. That's cool. Good. Yeah, Regina George. Who's Regina George? What is she from? That sounds familiar, but I don't know who that is. Okay. So let me go back a bit here because I have some questions that showed up. Any recommendations on good thrillers to learn writing from? Well, that's tricky. There are so many. Let me just do a quick... it's going to be easier if I do this. Okay, I am creating a new document so that I can write while I talk, and so good thrillers to learn writing from. There are a lot. There are so many, but let's start with 3 Days of the Condor. Also, The Conversation. Also, Insomnia. The Bridge, US TV. There are several versions of The Bridge. It was originally, I believe, a Norwegian or Swedish show, but I'm talking about the American one is great. Homeland TV. Thrillers, good thrillers. There are so many. I hate to do this because I'm just going to blank a bit. And what I should do is at some other time, thrillers, good thrillers. Also, there's so many types of thrillers. So I'm sort of blanking here, but this is a good start. I will think of more as we go along. All right. Also, have you tried Movie Magic screenwriting software? No, I have not. I have a friend who uses it, and he swears by it. I use Final Draft because it's what I learned. I wrote screenplays without any. There was no such thing as software when I started. When I started, it was a typewriter. So therefore, I was the software. Once software showed up, there was just word processing. There wasn't screenwriting software when I started, back in the early days of computers. And so what I would do is I simply formatted my word processing to dialogue and stuff like that. The 5 or 6 formats that I've shown in my how to format video. That I used that for, I guess 10 years or more. There wasn't such a thing, and I certainly couldn't afford it back then. I was an office temp and living really paycheck to paycheck. Once I started making a living at screenwriting, was about the same time that Final Draft was getting to be this industry standard. So the first job I had, they said, we need you to put it in Final Draft. So I bought Final Draft and I learned Final Draft and I do Final Draft. So that is, I have no, I have no proselytizing of Final Draft. It is the most commonly used, but it is also expensive, and you don't need it. But that you asked what I had. Oh, Mean Girls, Regina George. Thank you. Interesting. Yeah, me absolutely. I don't think of her as a mean. She's not an apparently mean girl, and she's not even the Godfather in the sense that she's masquerading as Fredo. she's masquerading as someone eager and wannabe-ish. She's masquerading as someone who is harmless, and then the trick is that beneath that she's angry and vicious. That's how I am figuring. Thank you, the Queen Bee. No, yeah, I don't think of Zena as the Queen Bee. What's interesting about these scenes is that Zena is going to be trying to convince everyone she's not in charge of the group. I may have actually unconsciously suggested that, but the whole point is this is her move, her secret move to take over. Uncut Gems. I can't recommend that as a good movie to learn writing from. It's a phenomenal movie. It's first of all, it's 90% improvised, and not in the sense that the dialogue, the scenes are planned, but they work very much with improvisation, and that's a phenomenal thing. But it's bad for trying to learn writing, except in the sense of story, the basic story. Furthermore, that Uncut Gems is a very specific story arc. And by the way, a really good example of how the rules don't all have to be followed. It's the arc. It's like a Shaggy Dog story. It's just everything happens again and again and again until it explodes. There is a third act. There's definitely a lot of cool, subtle structure. But what's actually interesting about Uncut Gems is, of course, how inarticulate the people are, and yet we understand things they don't understand. Good thrillers, Hitchcock. Oh, damn, that's right. Okay, hold on. Yeah, let's do Strangers on a Train. Is a phenomenal thriller, and also, oh man, there's so many. Frenzy, actually, most people don't like Frenzy, and I understand why. It is painful, but it is brilliant, and that's written by a really good writer, Anthony Schaefer. I mean, Hitchcock obviously controlled all of his scripts, but Strangers on a Train, Frenzy. Actually, you know, it's a really cool, complex thriller. The Talented Mr. Ripley. That's a really good character-based thriller. Well, good. There's lots of them. Yes, absolutely. Thriller and horror, they can often overlap. Walter Hill, yes. Walter Hill is a phenomenal writer. I'm trying to think of his thrillers. He's tricky because he also directed. Okay, let me think. I don't offhand have a Walter Hill thriller to hand, but Patriot. I'm not sure. I've never seen Patriot 2017. Tell me about it. Polanski's The Tenant. Is that a thriller or is that a horror movie? That's a tough one. But sure, absolutely. The Sixth Sense, is that a thriller? I'm not sure if I would call that a thriller. One of the things, this is true, one of the things you have to watch out for is the categories assigned by streaming services are very iffy. There's no scholarship there. There's no artist involved in making those choices. So they tend to put horror movies and thrillers in the same. They can't seem to tell the difference, streaming services. So if you're looking at streaming services and judging genres, be careful. First of all, who's to say? But everyone's allowed to make their own lists and their own genre definitions. But I would say that the things that streaming services call thrillers, horror movies, etc., very often not. Oh, you want to know a cool ultra low budget thriller is Blue Ruin. That's a really interesting. It's very, very low budget, very, very powerful, very, very. It's all about inarticulate characters, which is really interesting and cool. Anyway, Blue Ruin. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix. There are so many good thrillers. Let me think of other ones. I don't know. Okay. The Interview, I never saw The Interview. You guys seen a lot of movies that I haven't. Oh, okay, yeah. The Driver, yeah, and Alien. Absolutely. Alien, I call more of a horror movie. And this is not to denigrate, it's just to say that if you're looking for thrillers, I would say the deal is horror movies verge into the supernatural or the science fiction, whereas thrillers stay strictly on everyday life-ish things in the believable world, which is tricky because, and this is something I feel about genre, I'm working on a genre video, it is very possible to have a thriller in outer space, etc. But I do believe that Alien is technically a monster movie. The Driver, it's a crime thriller, and it's excellent. Cool. I've never seen Patriot. I will take a look at it. Thank you. All right. And award ceremonies. Yes. Yes. Okay. Psycho is definitely a horror movie. This is the other tricky thing. Horror movies are built on suspense often and fear, and so therefore they blend into thrillers. The thing about, I think that defines the difference between a thriller and a horror movie when it comes to very violent people, which you get when you get like slasher movies and things like that, is that the mechanics, the story is based more in the attempts of the characters to get out of a tough situation or to solve a problem. Whereas in the horror movies that are based in suspense and violence, person-on-person violence, they're more sort of battle-oriented. It's like, can I fight my way through this and that? Psycho is an interesting balance. That's kind of a thriller, but it's more a horror movie in my estimation. Psycho is a fascinating thing to study because it's such a mess in terms of all the rules. It breaks so many rules structurally. Okay. Yes, Terminator is definitely sci-fi horror. Low budget favorite cipher. Interesting. Okay. What Lies Beneath Harrison Ford, and I don't think it's Jodie Foster. What Lies Beneath, I know it's Harrison Ford, but I don't think it's Jodie Foster. That, once again, I would call that a horror movie because you're dealing with a supernatural force. Yes, oh yes, definitely. Jodie Foster has starred in brilliant thrillers. Therefore, yes, you can get into the serial killer vein, which sort of that verges onto the horror. It's very tricky, but Silence of the Lambs is beautifully constructed and really good. There's just so many great things. I'm going to be kicking myself tomorrow. I've gone way too long. I've gone so crazy on this stuff. You touched on the relationship with action and thriller. I'm going to be doing a genre video where I try to get on this. But basically, my take on this is a genre is a set of expectations. It's a set of familiar characters, settings, familiar themes, and so therefore the question is between action and thriller, is the content of the story more about the psychological and character-based games between people, or is it in action more about literally the action, about the physical action, the violence, and by the way, I don't say it in any way. I love action, but it's about physical as opposed to psychological action. Now, a good thriller can have physical action, but the basic operating principle is going to be more suspense and psychological games in a thriller, and in an action movie, it's going to be more physical action. Yes. One day we'll do more. Panic Room is a terrific. Yes, absolutely. I would put, and that's interesting because there's a hunk of action in there, but basically it's psychological gameplay. And you can have the elements of a thriller without having a thriller. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, Collateral. That is a good one. Collateral is interesting because it is an action thriller. Likewise, Heat, actually, also by the same director. Okay. I'm going to stop now. We can't do this forever. By the way, oh yes, thank you, Michelle Pfeiffer. Cool. We're going to stop. Is Cape Fear a thriller? Yes. Kind of edges onto horror because De Niro's character is almost a supernatural force, but in fact, no, he's a scary guy. Okay. Cold in July. Yes, excellent. Here's the other thing. I just lost my track. I think we're gonna wrap it up here. The important thing I think to remember is explore a genre. You'll find essays on any, like go onto the internet. I say this over and over again, and I think it's really important. Your job as writers is, when you have a thing you want to do, research it. Just start looking. There will be whole books on these subjects. There will be whole, plenty of essays and things. Some of them will be crappy. Some of them will be terrible. That's okay. It's good to see the bad. It's good to see things that don't work. That's cool too. You will learn from all of it. You will find that some critics or list makers, they jive with you better than others. That's the job of an artist, is to claw out of the mass of reality the stuff that hits them and the stuff that doesn't. Okay. Everybody, you are welcome. I am sorry if I skipped your comment or whatever. Hold on, just briefly, in case you want to grab a screenshot of this or pause it and write some of these down. This is just the tiniest sliver of good things that I happen to come up with at that moment. So great to see you all. Thank you so much. I'm taking off.